Good afternoon, viewers. Hope you are doing great and staying healthy. Nowadays, we are very conscious about eating right. Now, what is eating right? What time to eat, what to eat, how much to eat? What is body mass index, which we call BMI? What is BMI? Is our eating habit according to the BMI? How can I calculate calories? For example, if somebody tells me, the other day somebody told me that according to your height and weight, you have to have 1800 or 2000 calories a day. How will I know that how much is 1800 calories, and to get 1800 calories or 2000 calories in a day, what I should eat and when to eat? We have Ms. Farhana Afroz, Chief Nutritionist of Sagar Hospitals with us today. Good afternoon, Ms. Afroz.
Good afternoon.
So we'll talk much about that. Please send us our, your queries to us now, and we will be able to answer it now. Otherwise, also you can reach out to us offline. We will answer that to you. Let me just give a small introduction of Ms. Farhana Afroz. Ms. Afroz is a licensed registered dietitian with a post-graduation in nutrition and dietetics. She has around 16 years of experience with reputed corporate tertiary care hospitals, managing team and overseeing as head of department. Her specialization includes clinical care nutrition, therapeutic diet, oncology nutrition, weight management diet. I think it's more people come to you
Correct.
because of
Yes.
that, including weight gain, weight loss, and maintenance of diets. Diabetes management, cardiac nutrition, parental nutrition, which is very, very interesting. We don't even know what is parental nutrition. She is a life member of Indian Dietetic Association, life member of Nutrition Society of India, life member of Indian Association of Parental and Enteral Nutrition, life member of All India Advanced Research in Obesity, which is AARO. So, Ms. Afroz, to start with, as our today's topic is eating right. What is eating right?
To begin with, to tell you what exactly is eating right, let me just pose you one question.
Yeah.
Suppose if I say I eat breakfast as fruits, lunch as salads, and maybe again a salad in the dinner. So am I eating right?
Yes.
Okay. Next question, let me ask you. If I say I eat idlis for my breakfast with sambar, I eat rasam rice for the lunch, and dinner I eat curd rice. Am I eating healthy? Okay, so let me tell you, these both are not healthy eating. This is not the right eating. Right eating includes including a variety of food from all the food groups in a proper proportion, so that your daily requirements needed for your body is met properly. So that is called art of eating right, or in a simple language, what we say is a balanced diet. So to make you understand that, let me tell you what are the food groups that we have to include. If you look at my first example, I've just given you an example of eating fruits and vegetables. Nowadays many people think just eating fruits, salads and charts or something, fruit chart or something, it is very healthy. But no, you need to have proteins in your diet, you need to have carbs in your diet, you need to have some amount of fats in your diet, without which your daily requirement of your diet is not met. And the second example was, I have given you an example of a South Indian typical meal, like how we all eat, but in terms of just a rice item. Idlis are made from rice, dal and rasam I've told you again curd rice, which is again a rice based diet. So this diet lacks all vegetables and fruits. The other diet lacked all carbs and proteins. So in both the ways it is not healthy. So that is what we need to understand, that eating is not about just eating vegetables or just eating rice items. It is something that you need to have a variety of grains in your meal. If suppose you eat chapati in the breakfast, lunch you can have rice, dinner you can try a ragi ball or something like a broken wheat upma, something like that you can try. Having vegetables in meal. So all these things are very necessary, which makes the proper balanced diet.
So how about I being a Bengali, I'm too much into these rice things, I can't think of having dinner without rice.
Correct.
So what happens is that going back home, even though I take a very small portion of rice, but it has to be a rice.
Yes.
There has to be a fish, you know, maybe a dal. And to avoid, you know, the leafy vegetables, what I do is that I put carrots and beets and everything, boil it, and put it in a mixie and take a cup of that. So is that enough for the dinner?
If you ask me a particular meal wise, yes, it sounds good because it has a little amount of rice, it has fish, it has vegetables. So it makes a wholesome meal. It's not that just you're eating only a carb or a protein or just a vegetable. So in that way, you have to ensure that you eat everything. So one meal, the example which has been given seems to be absolutely correct. As
even for dinner?
Dinner, yes, it is fine. It depends upon the portion of rice what you have eaten. It's not that a mountain of rice, but a small cup of rice should do with a lot of vegetables and probably a protein dish like fish.
So instead of vegetables, if I take the beet and carrot and mixing and take it, is this serve the purpose?
Particularly one meal wise, if you ask me, yes, but it also depends what you have taken the other meals. Like suppose if you have eaten carbs in your breakfast or lunch, there's protein already, so if you're just eating vegetables, it can suffice. But not, as I said, if you're eating only salads, it doesn't serve the purpose.
So how it is that I can also see that my son, he has started intermittent fasting and from 110 he has become now 70, maybe in 3-4 months time.
Yes.
And he's still not eating, and I'm sure it's not good.
Intermittent fasting, if you ask me, it's an ancient practice which seems to be healthy. A lot of studies are being done on this, and it has shown a drastic results and a lot of benefits in intermittent. If you look at this, is basically a diet which works into 16:8 ratio, where you fast for 16 hours and you have a window period of 8 hours where you are allowed to eat carbs, proteins and fats to a limit. So what happens is when you fast for such a long hours, your body gets into a mode where your insulin level drops. So when your insulin level drops, your body starts utilizing fats as a source of energy. Otherwise, what happens if you have insulin, you have glucose in your body, that is what is being utilized. Excess glucose is stored in the body. But in intermittent fasting, the insulin level drops. So that helps a lot. Your metabolism improves. There's a lot of rest given to your liver so that it can rejuvenate, it can function well. So your fat mobilization, everything happens very well. So intermittent fasting seems to be good.
Just for, I just want to inform to our viewers that my son is hardly 30s, and he had a diabetic, early diabetic, and the HbA1c was quite high. It's almost 6 point something, which was quite high, and there was no way that it was coming down. The medicine was only increasing and increasing. From 1,000 it has become 2,000, 2,000 it has become 4,000. So we were not sure that how to control the diabetes, even though eating small and all this was not helping. So when he started this, his sugar level had dropped, the diabetic had dropped. And we had the in-house doctor, that diabetologist, Dr. Shobha Naidu. She had stopped the medicine.
Oh, very good.
Yeah. So I'm not sure. I'm just informing this to the viewers' knowledge. That sometimes those who are having an diabetic in the early ages, with the advice of the nutritionist and the that can try this out. This maybe the weight loss can help in getting out of the diabetes. This one thing, and again, Ms. Afroz, if you can just tell me that what are the good sources of getting protein?
Okay, so protein is basically we have it in both a vegetarian source as well as a non-vegetarian source. If you look at the vegetarian sources, we have everything like all types of dals. You name it, like chana dal, tur dal, masoor dal, all those kind of dals, red gram, whatever we say, they are good sources of protein. Apart from that, we have legumes like rajma, chana, green peas, and the richest source of protein in vegetarian is a soya protein. So that is also a very good source of protein. Apart from that, when it comes to the non-vegetarian sources, we have like white meat, what we call it as fish, chicken, eggs. They are a very good source of protein. The biological value is very high, so their absorption rate is very, very high compared to the vegetarian protein. Also, the red meat is also a source, but that we generally ask to limit the intake. Apart from that, we have milk. Milk is also a very good source of protein. So if you try and include these kind of foods in your daily living, it helps to meet your protein requirement.
But how to calculate the calories, because somebody said that, as I mentioned, 1800, 2000 calories in a day. How will I know that what is having what kind of calories?
Okay. So to get into the inside of understanding the calories, let me tell you what is a calorie. Calorie is basically an unit of energy. That's how we measure it, and we calculate what is the total energy required for a person, looking at their height, weight. They're looking at the BMI. We generally take it for say a height of mine with 5 feet, an average weight. Suppose if my BMI, my BMR, what we call it as basal metabolic rate. So that is the minimum calorie what we required is somewhere around say 1200. Okay, apart from that, based on my activity level, like what I do, whether I'm a very active person or I'm a sedentary person who just sits on a table, work what I do. So based on that, a calorie is added to it. So roughly for a woman, we generally say around say between an age of 30 to 55, that's what we take it as, and we say around eating between 1500 to 1800 should be good enough. And now the question is, how do we measure it?
Correct.
So to understand like how to eat, we generally teach our clients how to calculate this exchange list, like how many 2 slices of bread makes 1 serving, 2 medium sized idlis makes 100 calories. That's how we'll teach them. So that has been taught so that they understand that 1 katori of dal, which is approximately 100 grams, 100 ml. So that is like gives you around 7 grams of protein and 100 calories. So this has been told during the counseling sessions, where we'll show them serving sizes, how much to eat, and how to calculate. So that is what is being told to them, like looking at a plate, how to measure. If you take a pile of rice, how much it is, what is actually 1 serving of rice looks like. So if you understand that, then it becomes very easy to understand roughly like what is your calorie intake. Otherwise, a rule of thumb, what we say is, when you cannot do all this, understand your hunger signals. Okay, if you're hungry, try eat food. Before you feel food, stop it.
Okay,
stop it. And
it's very difficult.
It is the very toughest moment in anybody's eating time, because that's why you feel like filling and you feel sumptuous after eating that. But we say that the moment you start eating, take a small portion size, and you feel like you're gonna be full in another 10 minutes. Stop. So that itself is enough to make you understand that somewhere you're meeting. So if you there is a thin line, what we call it as eating very less to eating less. If you can understand that serves a purpose.
What is the right time to have the different courses of meals? So breakfast at what time? Midday, then lunch, and then again afternoon, and then the dinner.
Okay. It depends upon your lifestyle. What time do you start your day and everything? Like suppose if you ask me a normal person, like if you start at say 5:30 a.m., 6 a.m., your breakfast you can have it at 8 a.m. and everything. Suppose you start your meal say at 8 a.m., make sure there's a gap of at least minimum 4 hours to 5 hours to ensure that you have another meal. So that becomes your major 3 meal pattern, where is your breakfast, lunch and dinner. 3 meals you are having it. So ensure that you give a gap of 4 to 5 hours. So what happens is your food is actually swallowed, digested in the sense it gets mixed with the saliva, mixed with the gastric juices, and it stays in the stomach. Then what the stomach does, it doesn't releases the whole food to the intestine. It holds it. A portion of food is released to the intestine to ensure that is digested and absorbed, and then the food. So that is what we say, the food takes 4 to 5 hours to get finished in your stomach, to get completely digested, and you are actually prepared to eat another meal.
That is a major food what you have said, that breakfast and then lunch and then the dinner. How about the midday, like when to take the fruits, or in the mid-afternoon if you're feeling hungry, we all feel hungry post lunch, around 3 or 4 o'clock, we just feel like having a biscuit or something like that. So when to have that, or is it good to have that?
There's a lot of myths surrounding the fruits. So let me tell you, like, as a dietitian, what we keep hearing from our clients, they say, like, you're not supposed to eat fruits by dinner time. After dinner, you cannot eat a fruit along with the meal. It doesn't get digested, it stays in your stomach, it leads to bloating. Probably it ferments and becomes rotten in the stomach, because there's a cooked food and a raw food together doesn't go a combination. Your sugar levels go high if you eat a fruit and all those things
after dinner.
And all those things we keep hearing from our client, because a lot of thing goes on internet and everything, and people keep reading and start believing in that. So when they come to meet us and look for suggestions, we tell that scientifically nothing has been proven. Our stomach has a capacity to hold our food and release in smaller portions, so that it can be digested easily. So if you ask me what is the best time to eat a fruit, definitely a snack time, as you said, because you are giving a gap. You have eaten a meal, there is a gap of say 2 hours, and you took a small snack and you are able to eat it, and it has a lot of fiber. The reason why people feel that it is not being digested is fruits has a lot of fiber in it. So fiber, what it does is it is moved slowly in the body, and it keeps you full for a long time. So that's why people try to avoid it in the night time, because they feel full after that. So my suggestion would be to have a fruit as a snack, mostly in the mid morning or the mid evening. That should be good. And immediately having a dinner after that should be also okay, because we as a nutritionist, we don't tell them to have a dinner very late. We say try to finish something between 6 and 7, and so there is a huge gap. By the time you go and sleep, your food is almost digested and you are sleeping. So that is the best thing. So instead of fruit juice, fruits are the best.
So when you said about the fiber, how much fiber should be there in the meal, say in one day?
Okay, so we have a particular calculation where we say, like, you need to have 20 grams or 30 grams in your meal and everything. But what we say is, if you can't calculate, ensure that at least you have 2 to 3 fruits in a day.
Okay.
2 to 3 fruits in a day, and a half a kg of vegetable if possible per person per day. So if you ask me how do I eat half a kg of vegetable, because most of my clients say me that this is what we use it for the whole family. So but if you really look at that way, you have a small salad, you had something in the breakfast, something in lunch and dinner, it comes around that much of quantity if you really eat a proper vegetable. Otherwise, many people say that I eat spinach, I eat bhindi, I eat all the, but still I landed up with deficiencies, and I have to be on a multivit pills or a syrup or whatever it is. But trust me, if you eat a proper quantity of vegetable and a proper prescribed fruits, you really don't require a pill to be taken along with the meal.
Okay.
Yes.
That's a very interesting information. Yeah. So people also say that one should have at least 4 liters of water every day. So actually, how much water one should intake? Okay. And we also take tea, coffee. So does it include in the watery things, or the water is only the drinking water and tea, coffee is a separate one?
Okay. To tell you about water, how important in our diet, when we talk about carbohydrates, proteins and fats, we talk about the first nutrient called water. Though it doesn't give you any calories or proteins, anything, but it becomes a very vital nutrient, because every cell of your body has a fluid in it, and it comes through a water source. And if you look at a person's total body weight, around 60 to 65% of the weight is about your fluid content. And apart from that, water becomes so essential, because from your saliva secretion in your mouth to your gastric juices to your hormone production, everything you require water as a source. So if you look at how much water is healthy and how much water can be unhealthy, we calculate in a very simple way. We say 30 ml per kg body weight. If you look at, say, if I take a weight of an average lady, say 50 kg, 30 into 50 is 1.5 liter. So that is for the basic requirement.
Okay.
Basic requirement. So 1.5 is only for the basic requirement, so that you can meet. For
the what is the calculation you said?
30 ml into per kg body weight, whatever total kg you have. So if you take a 60 into 30, it will be 1.8. 30 into 70, you take it, and you will get 2,100 ml. So in that way.
Okay.
This is for the basic. Plus we say another 1 liter additional for your urination, perspiration, everything you require water. So if you add it in that way, it comes minimum as 2.5 liters.
Okay.
So that is for an average 50 kg. But a person grows taller and a little heavier in weight, your water requirement also increases along with that. So
how about the tea coffee? Is that included?
Yes. So many people say that, you know, I take 5 cups of tea. So is that coming to around, say, half a liter of water in a day? We generally say no, because tea and coffee both got this caffeine, tannins in that. So it actually acts like a diuretic. It removes more water from your body. So how can it be a water source?
Okay.
So we say don't consider that as, like, you know, especially your carbonated drinks, so that you have to ensure that, you know, you avoid them, and it is not actually comes under the calculation of water. So what you can take is probably you can take buttermilk, tender coconut, maybe a little fruit juice. What you're taking,
those are coming
underwater.
Underwater. Okay.
But still, we say when we calculated this 2.5 liters, it should be purely water. That's how it goes.
Okay. How much fat? I'm sorry. How much fat is required in the diet?
Okay. If you look at the fat, the way we calculate and the way we prescribe, you will not see fat in the diet.
Okay.
Okay, so we say roughly taking 3 to 4 teaspoons in a day should suffice your requirement, because there are 2 types of fat. One is the visible fat, the other one is the invisible fat. So invisible fat is present even in the rice, vegetable, dal, everything. There's a little invisible fat which goes into the composition. The visible fat is what we are adding to the food. So we have to ensure that, you know, that is limited. So ensure that you take 3 to 4 teaspoons in a day, not more than that. So if you ask me how do I use 3 to 4 teaspoons, I would say your rotis have to go without oil. Okay. Okay. Your tadkas should have a very minimal oil. You should never get a floating layer of oil in your food, so that then it looks and there's nothing deep fried in your food. So then it meets the requirement. And we generally say that, you know, you can have approximately half a liter per person per month, provided you're eating at home properly.
So which cooking oil you know, generally you suggest? That we have, you know, 2, 3, that we have mustard oil, then we have white oil, then we have soy oil, and you know, there are other various many oils.
So there's a lot of market hype also goes into that, saying that this oil is very healthy, this is actually going to cut down your cholesterol level, this is very good for heart and everything. Certainly vegetable oils are the best oils compared to any animal based fats. So what we say is there are 2 types of fat. One is the good fat, the other one is the bad fat.
It's also coming as a rice bran oil.
Yes.
So
yes,
is that comes under the vegetable oil?
Yeah, it comes under the vegetable source, because it is produced on the ground and everything. It has nothing to do with the vegetable animal sources. So if you ask me, there are good fats and bad fats. Good fats forms the monounsaturated fatty acids. The other one is the polyunsaturated fatty acids. So these fatty acids are actually good because they help in reducing cholesterol, maintaining your bad cholesterol levels, and it's good for heart, and it helps in weight loss also.
Right.
So this comes through a vegetable oil. So if you ask me which oil, if you look at groundnut oil, sunflower oil, canola oil, so all these oils are good, provided if you can do a blending if possible. If not, at least a rotation of oils if it can be done, that's the very best way.
It is good. Is it?
It
How
is
about
actually,
olive oil?
Olive oil is the best oil. That's how the whole globe world believes in, because it is rich in monounsaturated fatty acid. But let me tell you something about the oil composition. No oil comes as a single oil composition. Every oil will have monounsaturated fatty acid, polyunsaturated fatty acids, as well as there is a small component of bad fats which is called saturated fatty acids. So every oil, it has it. But yes, being olive oil, which is of a more of a Mediterranean diets and a Western use countries being using it, it has given a lot of hype. But if you look at our own oil compositions like groundnut oil and all, they're also almost equivalent to that kind of oil. The mantra only lies in that you need to have a very small amount of oil.
Okay.
It's not that only olive oil which you have to use it. The other thing with olive oil is that you cannot fry anything, you cannot cook with it, because you have to just add it to the food. So the moment you start cooking something, it has a very high smoking point, so it starts developing smoke, so which is not healthy.
Okay, okay.
So that has to be avoided. It should be used mostly like an extra virgin olive oil, which can be used on the dressings and everything.
That I think again is a very interesting thing, that while we see that olive oil nowadays, and people are not aware that we should not cook into olive oil.
Yes.
Please remember that we can add on as a top up type.
Absolutely.
But the moment we start our frying and making the vegetables and all this in an olive oil, the gas which when it
produces the smoke, it becomes toxic.
Yes, it becomes toxic. So please remember that. So again, while I was talking about the oils, something had come up into my mind, that how about the sugar intake? Because we as an Indian, we love to have the coffee with sugar, tea with sugar, or tea with heavy milk and sugar. So how much sugar intake one can have?
If you ask me about the sugars, a decade or 2 decades ago, yes, the sugar intake we would have said to have more. But as the processed foods are taking over in the market, we have also started eating a lot of processed foods like vermicelli, rava, which has no fiber in it. So it forms one of the purest form of carbs, whereas the sugar itself is a purest form of carbs. So our carb intake is going very high. So what we have to ensure is we have to reduce that. So if we are reducing that, then yes, probably we can ensure that the sugar can be managed within that. So we generally say not more than 4 to 5 teaspoons in a day if you are not a diabetic.
Okay. So it doesn't add on to your weight or something, because the people
if it is within your calorie. If it is within your calorie, you are able to manage the portion sizes of everything, it can be taken.
Okay. And how about sugar-free?
Yes. So if you ask me, any sugar substitute which is synthetically produced as a powder or a tablet form, anything synthetic is a synthetic thing. It cannot be a replacement to a sugar. Yes, though it gives a taste, but a lot of human studies not been happen on that. Only animal studies have been done on that, and few have been found to be a little dangerous too.
Oh, okay.
They can be carcinogenic. They can have some mental disorders on a long-term usage. Okay. So we generally say better to go without sugar rather than having a sugar substitute. So that's how.
This again is a very important point to be noted, that we occasionally go to the grocery shop and we say that to manage our weight, let me not take the sugar. Instead of that, let me have sugar free. So as she has mentioned, that in a long run it is very, very dangerous to have it. So it is better to avoid.
Absolutely, it is better to avoid rather than go without sugar rather than trying all those things.
Right. So if you can just give some tips, we are running out of time, to the viewers, that we have the habit of going out and eating out on our weekends. Most of us do that. What is a healthy way of eating out?
Okay. So if you ask me, I would always say eat a small snack and go. So that you don't end up eating too much. And second thing, kindly go through the menu rather than just ordering something which looks tasty or looks appealing to the eyes, because if you go through the menu card, you'll understand what is healthy and everything, and try to be a little on health conscious always, because you will end up eating too many calories as you don't know how the preparation has happened and everything, and wherever there's a lot of oil added to it, it tastes very good. So my suggestion would be, if you're having some soups, try to go for clear soups rather than going for a cream of soups. Instead of ordering butter paneer, order palak paneer, which can be less oily, less fat content. Order tandoor roti rather instead of ordering a paratha. So all those small changes, having a salad, so all those things can be taken care. The other thing which we need to be conscious is about eating a buffet, where sometimes we end up eating 20 desserts, tasting. So that should be kept it at the last, and you should try and eat as much as possible these starters and everything, so that your starters are more grilled and everything with salads and soups. So that should do. And
how about I'm very fond of pastas. Okay. So I go by whenever I see that sumptuous white sauces and. So I'm sure it's not good, but how bad it is.
So if you ask me the composition of pasta is basically made up from the refined atta, which is our maida, and definitely our white sauce contains only butter, maida, and sometimes egg white, That is what is used, mayonnaise. So these are the things which is used to form it. So I would say, rather than completely avoiding something which you like, decrease the frequency of it. If it is every weekend, make it monthly twice and come to monthly once. That should do it, so that you can also enjoy your favorite dish. And the portion size matters a lot.
Right. So if you can just guide our viewers that how an ideal planned meal would be, the pattern of the meal would be.
Okay.
Starting from the morning what to eat.
Yes. To begin with, I would say, like, the moment you get up in the morning, try to have a lukewarm water, which can be approximately half a liter, which you can sip it. It's not that at a time you need to finish it.
It's a plain water.
It's plain water.
No lemon
no
water.
Lemon, nothing.
Okay.
So we
no
generally
honey,
say
lemon and all this.
We generally say to have a half a liter of water, lukewarm water. That also helps you, like, going to washroom and everything, and it helps rather than just having a cup of coffee in the morning. So good way to start is to have a warm water, at least half a liter in the morning. After that, maybe you can have a cup of coffee or a tea, light, not too strong. And you can have your breakfast after that, giving a gap. And breakfast, you can eat a little heavier breakfast. So heavier breakfast also, the quantity what we limit is not more than 3 to 4 idlis with vegetable chutneys and vegetable sambar and all those things. If you can add some fruit to your breakfast, that's a very good thing. If you're working, try to carry your lunch pack as much as possible so that you can avoid eating outside. So what happens when you carry from home, you really understand, like, what is the quantity and what has been packed and everything. So ensure that you take a salad, there is dal, something in your meal properly. So we generally say, like, rice, you can eat approximately this much of rice, 2 cups, not more than that. With that, you can have dal, vegetables and everything along with that. So that's an ideal meat. Eat slowly, chew it well, so that the digestion also happens good. Otherwise the food doesn't get digested properly, and people feel little bloated sometimes when it is not properly chewed and everything. Evening, try to cut down on tea, coffee. See if possible, if you can have a tender coconut or buttermilk, something like that. That's a very refreshing drink, so that will keep you a little active in the evening. Dinner, I would always suggest try to finish it up by 7 p.m. max. And the dinner should be the lightest meal of the day. Try not to have more than 2 small fulkas of your palm size with vegetable, and probably a small cup of curd if you're a vegetarian. Or if you're a non-vegetarian, you can have a small piece of chicken or a fish. That should do. I
by
think
8 o'clock?
By 7. By 7 if you can finish. So there is a gap of at least 2 to 3 hours by the time you go to bed. So your food is already digested and it is good. If you really feel hungry by bedtime, say around 10:30 or something, you can have a small cup of milk with little turmeric, or if not, a butter
with a
glass
little
of
turmeric.
That also soothes your body and you get a good sleep. It adds to your antioxidants and everything. So it's a good thing.
Okay. How about having tender coconut early in the morning?
It is good.
It's good.
It is good. There's nothing harm in having early in the morning. It's only that we want you to start with something warm so that it helps you clear the bowel and detoxify yourself and everything. Otherwise, also a tender coconut water is good for health. In between, if you feel like, you can keep on sipping something like buttermilk, barley water. You can have some nimbu pani with little salt and pepper, jaljeera, something like that added to water and all. It should help you. So that will also keep you full instead of having a larger meals and everything.
Right.
So that's a good way. And ensure that you take at least 2 fruits in a day, minimum 2 fruits, though I say 3. And vegetable servings, minimum 3 katoris, big katoris, 2 thick katori dal in a
Any
day,
vegetable.
possible. Any vegetable. It doesn't mean that only potatoes. So it should be
like
green leafy vegetables. They can be bhindi, they can be beans, anything. Any kind of a vegetable can be taken in that way.
Or you can also do a shortcut like I do. Mix up everything in a mixie and just sip it.
Make a smoothie, right?
Yeah, make a smoothie and just have it. Thank you so much, viewers, for being with us. And I'm really sorry today that our internet is not working. So most of the people has reached out to us saying that they wanted to share, their habits or their concerns about their children and all those, but then they could not able to reach out to us. However, you can write to us offline, and she will certainly, answer that. And please subscribe to our page or like our page, Sagar Hospitals India, at Facebook. And to have an appointment with Farhana Afroz, please call us up at 080 42 999. Thank you so much.